I did promise a few people who really wanted to be a part of this and couldn't make it that I would record it. So normally we don't. This morning we are. So for your awareness, I shared with many, if not all of you, that the thought that that led to this. Actually, Lisa, I just can give you full credit for bringing the idea. Was that towards the end of his tenure at the seminary, Dr. Borowitz was co-teaching a class that became very, very popular called Real Theology. And we'd prepare by watching a movie at first in the semester that he and Dr. Zierler were choosing for us. But then as we went on, it became the students' responsibilities to prepare the lessons. We would suggest a movie that all the rest of the class would watch. We would come in and we would lead the conversation for all of them, and just pray that that Dr. Borowitz would somehow find it acceptable, making no eye contact whatsoever with him while he sat over here experiencing our lesson to the room. And so as we thought it'd be an opportunity to celebrate his life, this seemed like a fabulous way to just pick up the style of teaching that he left with me. This is not one of the movies, obviously, that we learned in class. It's a very recent movie, but we're going to tackle it in the same approach. So some of you did the preparatory work of watching the movie and maybe making a few notes and coming with a few thoughts. Some of you did not, and that's absolutely fine. It's just like seminary. I have a bunch of ideas and texts and thoughts that might take us deep into it. And as well, we're going to tackle it the way we often do with Bible study, which is to see where you want to take it. So I think without any other delay, why don't we go ahead and jump in? So I'm tempted to ask how many of you, with a show of hands, had a chance to watch the movie, but I just did it apparently. Okay, and okay, great. What, last night at 12? Oh, good. I thought that I heard Muriel tell you not to watch it at night before bed, but there you are. You dove in at middle of the night, and I watched it with my son, who's very intuitive. And man, he just loved it without my having to point out themes and ideas. He was making connections between what he's hearing in the news cycles today, and of course you were doing the same thing. And so I thought I would just start maybe by allowing people to offer not a long monologue, but just a sentence or two of thought and reflection. For those of you in the room, if you would like to share your thoughts, let me know, and I'm going to come bring you a microphone, because without a microphone, the people at home won't be able to hear you. That's going to be changing in the next couple of months. We're going to wire up the room with some better acoustics, but for today, that's where we are. And folks at home, I won't necessarily see your hand over my shoulder, but if you speak, we will be able to hear you in the room. So anyone want to take a moment and just reflect with a sentence or two about what the movie did to them, for them, made you think about, what it brought up? Great. Barbara.
Just to limit it to one sentence, it was supposed to be a satire, but things are so weird right now in the world that reality is almost a satire on the movie.
Thank you. Yeah, Edith.
Well, I kept thinking about the issue of the environment as the same thing, and that in the end, when nothing seemed to work, they prayed.
That's terrific. Yeah. When there was time to do something, when there was still an opportunity, they squandered it, and instead greed took over, and they convinced the masses that this was going to somehow be good for them, and when all else failed, prayer shows up. Yeah, we're going to explore that as well. Thank you. Muriel.
I couldn't help notice the similarity between the importance of science and even today with climate control. People are saying, no, we have time. We're in a crisis now with that. And the ending just threw me. When they're sitting at the very end, just toward the end, with DiCaprio sitting with his family and they're holding hands. And he said, we didn't realize we had everything. And I think that's something that we need to remember. And then, of course, the ending leaves you.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I saw Gary and Ronnie had a hand up over there.
Yeah, I mean, this is really just a reinforcement of what we've heard. To me, it was a it was a satire, but really a very strong case for the dangers of science denial. And you know, throughout the movie, as you said, we had clues. We could have moved forward. We actually had the technology, but you know, it didn't serve a purpose. Didn't serve either a political or an economic purpose.
Thanks, Gary. Judy, please go ahead.
I couldn't help vacillating between Noah's Ark, the story of Noah's Ark, which I think we looked at as just a parable and never thought much about it, and the environment today.
Oh, that's cool. With all the different places and biblical similarities that my brain bounced around through, Noah's Ark didn't actually occur to me. That's a great reference. You know, collecting a small group who's going to carry on and start over again. And yet, we hoped that they might have had a fresh start, but in fact, they carried along all the same Mishugas. Thank you, Gail. That was left behind. That's great. Great. Muriel's got another thought. Oh,
Just but with Noah's Ark, there were people left. They may have had their Mishugas, but here it was much more dire.
yeah. Interestingly, as we were watching it, my son Amitai got upset 2 times during the movie. The first was when the robot drones landed on the asteroid and started doing what they were supposed to be doing, and he was like, "Oh man, I guess all movies have to have a happy ending, huh?" Because the music was sounding very positive and it was looking like it was going to work out, and he didn't think we deserved that. And then after the destruction of the Earth, and you see the debris, the detritus floating in space, and then comes the spaceship, and it makes it out, and he's like, "Oh, the movie should have ended with the destruction." He's like, he was really bummed that the creators had decided to save humanity, when in fact they hadn't. Did you all watch to the last scene? Okay, yeah, there was one more scene that might have gotten overlooked if you turned it off too quickly. Dennis? Yeah, great. It didn't end so happily. Moira, hold on a second.
So I actually think there was a happy ending, because also I've been watching, I don't know if you guys have been watching this thing on PBS about, no, it's on Turner Classic Movies. It's a professor of UCLA who's really well known in the film industry, and he's explaining an analysis of films. And so anyway, he there was one program which was about the happy ending. And the happy ending is kind of really needed in almost every film. There's some way in which you can find a happy ending. I think the happy ending was the redemption of the scientist who had been so swept away by the social media and the attention and the idea that he wasn't this nerdy, anxious, unattractive man, that he was an attractive man and valued and all of that. And then he got back to his true values. Mm-hmm. That's the happy ending.
Yeah. That's wonderful. Did everyone understand what Moira was pointing at here? So what she did was, and I have some text about that as well. Maybe we'll come back to that. But there are some themes of teshuvah that run through the movie, and what it means to follow various paths. And while we may be thinking in terms of humans ending in this story, and that's so good, what Moira did was broke it down to the personal, to the individual. And if we're just looking at Randall Mindy, is that his name? Mindy Randall? I kept getting mixed up what his first and last name are. Dr. Mindy. Dr. Mindy's personal journey has a very meaningful ending. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Judy, hold on one second. Get you that mic. Sure.
And also, the end of humankind isn't the end of our souls.
Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm gonna keep thinking about that one, Moira.
I thought it was interesting that when the Earth actually completely disintegrated and they showed the scene out in space and all of the garbage that was coming out, what struck me is it wasn't any like any symbol of a religion or something what I would consider important. It was technology. It was the phone that was floating off into space. It was just the garbage. It didn't show anything of monument. You know, once it was all destroyed, there wasn't a sign of any religious symbol or personal symbols. It was a phone.
Yeah,
garbage. And I thought that was a very distinct choice of what they were showing in the destruction.
It clearly was a good choice, and we could play with your observation and maybe test it a little bit and ask, were those not the symbols of the false religions that had been dominating humanity to the point of folly and ultimate destruction? The phone turned out not to save us. We were idolizing the wrong things. I'm going to take three more observations, and then we're going to try something a little different. Judy? Sorry, Barbara?
Yes, I felt the same. And when I stepped back, it was really a comment on science versus faith, and how that balance of believing in science versus faith in some larger power. And nobody except the young evangelical, nobody showed any attachment to faith. In fact, it was, the woman said, "How do you say amen? Do you just say amen?" That was, and how do you do this? And yet, in the end, to me, it was saying we need faith, or at least community that is brought together through faith. And I tried to imagine an ending where he wasn't there, the Evangelica. How would they end without some feeling of redemption coming and comfort from God?
And how were they trying to end, even after the prayer, talking about grinding one's own coffee? Just trying to fill the space, because what else do you put in a space like that? And it's an interesting observation. We'll come back in a few minutes to talk about faith and belief and trust, but there was a lot of faith. Look at the rallies and how they had faith. Some had faith in the scientists. Some had faith in the politicians. There was a lot of faith, just not necessarily the most well-founded. Diane?
So when did this movie come out?
2021.
Okay, so we saw it shortly after it came out. We saw it at home. We didn't see it in the theater, and we saw this as just unbelievable commentary on COVID and what was happening. And I think that's why this movie was made. And the whole time we were watching this, it was like, this is exactly what we're doing. We're idiots. We're just not looking up. And I was surprised that I didn't see bleach bottle, you know, in the end, as one of the symbols, you know, floating out there. It was, and we were mad when we saw it. We were really angry, and it was like, this is how stupid we are. And it made me feel like this is a commentary on humanity, and we are this dumb.
Yeah, it was actually scheduled to go into production at the front end of COVID, and it was delayed by 2 years. And I mean, the trends and themes could definitely be connected to COVID. I actually didn't think about that as much as the environment and political manipulation and the self-interest of a small group. But yes, I mean, satire, yes. Ripped from the headlines, pretty much. Yeah. No. Go ahead, Grant.
What came to mind is your assignment to, connect to maybe the theology and trying to figure this out through the movie. I'm saying, so what's the connection? What's the connection? And at the very end, when he says, we had everything, it came together, and it's a direct Deuteronomy 30:10-14. Part of it says literally, don't look up for the answer. That salvation, redemption is within us. Look to ourselves. You're near, it's close, you're closer to it than you think.
Yeah. Okay, I see that Leslie's also got her hand up, so I'll say to Leslie, nope. But Gail and Leslie, I will come back to you first as we work into a little bit more material as well. I thought it might be interesting thinking about this notion of knowing that your end is defined. It doesn't happen all that often in life. Often by the time that our loved ones around us can see that our end is imminent, we are already unable to be a part of whatever's next. But in the special and holy situations where someone does know that their situation is terminal and close, people will often then start thinking differently. Sometimes it'll involve conversations with loved ones that need to be had. Some of you are already thinking ahead about the workshop that we'll hold in another 2 months, I think, on writing ethical wills. So how do you try to wrap up the meaning of your life while you still can? We talk about bucket lists, knowing that we all have a terminal expiration date. We have things that we'd like to do before it's too late. I mean, even things like Make-A-Wish Foundation were developed to try and to bring moments of significance into a life that may not have a whole lot more to it. So I wanted to just get some examples from you. If you were before that question, let's go a slightly different route. We saw lots of examples of how people, individually and collectively, chose to use their final time over the course of the movie. Some of them came to accept the fact that time was limited sooner. Some of them only at the very last scenes. But if you knew that the world was coming to an end, let's go big. If you knew there was a comet that was going to hit us and you had 6 months, what would you use that 6 months to, to do? How would you handle it? What would be the approach? If anyone sees a hand that I don't see, please just point it out. Gail?
Being a child of the 50s, and when I was about your son's current age, and Khrushchev was going to bury us, and the nuclear war was going to destroy the world. And my friends and I had long discussions about, we've lived a good life so far. If we knew it was going to end and the missile was on the way, would we have sex or die virgins? and please God.
So humorously, what Gail's putting her finger on is sort of a, I'll say, hedonistic approach, saying, screw it. You know, I want to enjoy. I deserve to enjoy, and I'm going to seek out sex. Good. Love it.
The question of if you knew you had 6 months, having gone through that, I realized we just did what we always did. We were together. The only thing I would add to it is we probably should have spoken more. And I was very much in denial.
Oh, when Muriel was in that window of time with a loved one, they just sanctified the time by making it as authentic and being as present as possible, and could have done even a little more, perhaps. Good. What would you do? How would you spend your last, let's say, 6 months? I'll come around. Let's see. Diane?
I think I would gather all of my family together, as much of them as I could get, but definitely the closest, and try to have experiences and just be real, be together, because that's really the most important thing to me anyway. I'd like to be, say I'm going to go to Kilimanjaro or do something, but I think I would want more time with my family.
And if you had chosen to do Kilimanjaro, well, you hold on. Yeah. What would that be about? What's at the essence of you deciding, I want to climb Kilimanjaro with the time I have left?
Something I've never experienced, wanting to get as much out of this gift of life as I could get.
Yeah.
But I still don't think I would choose that over these people that mean the most.
Good. So I think the kinds of responses we're starting to hear, intense pleasure, intense presence and connection, probably that makes sense to a lot of folks. Are there any other responses that sort of fall outside of those couple of categories? Let's do Art and then Lisa.
I'm reminded of the period when COVID started, and we said, don't meet with anybody, live your life in your own home with your family. And I was worried about that at the beginning, but it ended up being that for a few months, I was fine, because I was very pleased with our life. And when we did, someone came over very infrequently. They sat apart and brought their own food and drink. So if that's the way I was thinking, that wasn't so bad.
That's great. Thank you, Art. Okay. Lisa?
So I think that I would also, aside from wanting to see every single Broadway show, fifth row center, and not worry about the cost, and being with my friends and my family, enjoy. But I also would seek out people who I don't regularly see or hadn't seen in years to say thank you. And also to find people to whom I needed to apologize. Those two things I would add on to all the things about pleasure and joy and family.
That's great. Yes to all of that. And one of the things that Lisa said that I think was a nice little addition to the list so far is not worrying about the cost. We have discipline that we have all, to some degree or others, driven towards, whether it's our diet or our urges or our pleasures, and we try to control those. And a little example was, screw it, I'm buying fifth row center, because you can't take it with you, right? You can't take the money that you've been careful to keep safe. You can't take that with you. So you may as well enjoy it. All of that was great. Thanks, Lisa. And ice cream, of course. Yep. Now that she realizes what I'm getting at here. Oh, well. And actually, now that I think about it, Gail's example was exactly the same. As 13-year-old kids, they had very carefully withstood temptation, and sex is something that now, why resist? You know, what's the risk here? Who cares about teen pregnancy at that point? Okay, one more. Go ahead.
I'll be quick. When my husband died and he knew he was dying, he wrote his autobiography. Now, I don't write like that, so I would not do that. I try to fill every moment in a meaningful way in my life, and I would just continue to do exactly what I've been doing for the next 6 months.
So that's a powerful observation. I'm going to keep Barbara, I'm going to hear one more voice, and then we're going to roll forward. That was a powerful observation that when you're faced with the opportunity to make dramatic change and decide that no change is really necessary. Elisa?
I would plant a tree or something on the off chance that a piece of the planet would survive and that there would be a remnant of people who would also survive. And I would do something for them for the future.
Oh, wow. Was everyone up here able to hear what Elisa added? Which of course reminds me of the Midrash, the Agada from Talmud, that if someone says to you, the Messiah has come while you're planting a tree, you should finish planting the tree, which is ludicrous because there's no need for us to do that kind of thing once the Messiah has come, and yet we're so focused on our role and contribution to something beyond ourselves that even in the case that we're contemplating, Elisa says, no, I still want to put that tree in the ground. Moira, I saw your hand as well. I'm going to go forward a little bit more. Oh, man. Okay. And this is why it takes us 11 years to get through Tanakh. All right. Screw it. Let's do Barbara, Moira, and Carol. And Marty too.
Okay, I was just going to add that I think I would like to gather people almost like a Shiva call and go over memories and laugh, in the way after someone's passed, but do it ahead of time. Open-ended for I don't know how long.
Life review, stories, memories. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. Moira?
So, I was struck seeing the movie for the second time in preparation for today about how, in some way, the U.S., the president's response was necessary because otherwise the infrastructure of society would fall down because people would stop doing what they do. They would stop going to work. They would stop driving taxis, maintaining electricity, putting on Broadway shows or whatever, So this question that we're having about what we would do if this has happened, it's really theoretical because most likely we wouldn't have the opportunity to get on a plane and fly to Mount Kilimanjaro and climb Mount Kilimanjaro with a guide, right? So then we get back to the real question is why not now?
Right. It also, what you're saying, made me think a little bit about Marx's notion that religious messaging and structures are about controlling the masses, and that those who try to tell the truth have a bag thrown over their head and are whisked off the grid because it's dangerous to the structures of society. And the rioting and looting, which is, one of the many responses to the question I had a moment ago about the end of the world in 6 months. Well, gosh, I've seen that television in the window of the store for some time now, and I've wanted it, but I can't have it. But now, what are the consequences? There are no consequences for my actions. I may as well just throw a rock through the window and take the television. And so there is an element of understanding that if the president had better intentions, then her choice to carefully control the flow of truth could be understandable. Carol, go ahead. Got to unmute.
Okay, so I'm coming to you from Florida,
where I have a little mini reunion with friends from the summer. But I'm on my way, and I think it ironic that this is sort of a kickoff to the Rabbi's Death and Dying seminar that's coming up. But other than that, I'm ending up in Las Vegas because one of our childhood friends has the beginning stages of dementia. And so a couple of us have decided that we are going to reunion while we can still have memories. So I guess I agree with Gail or Edith, that you have to really enjoy every single day and find something each day. Now the minutia of the film is that the scene where she had the Michigan State sweatshirt on, that was filmed at Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts, where I went, and Liz Lebo also went there. So that's my stream of consciousness thoughts for today.
Yeah, you bounced us around on that last piece, but what an interesting observation that that a diagnosis of dementia is a great parallel to this, knowing that this person's world is going to be destroyed and knowing you have a limited amount of time. And Carol's example of, carpe diem, while it's still possible, is terrific. That's a great, real world proof. And did Leslie, where are you, Leslie? Did you still want to jump in?
No, not necessary, no.
Okay. I'm not calling, damn it, Marty, go ahead. Let's get you unmuted, Marty.
Sorry, I wanted to pick up on that why not now. I think that I can't think of anything I would do differently. I'm pretty satisfied with things as they are. I've done the major things I wanted to do. So I would just continue living as I am, probably. But for people who have an urge to see Kilimanjaro or get together with people, then why not now? Why wait until there's a deadline? Try to live your life in a way that you do the things that you would want to do. Obviously, in some cases, there may be some financial restrictions, but for most of us, there aren't. There's nothing that's that expensive that it would be out of the question. I think too many people live a life where they have anxiety about things they want to do differently, and they never take the opportunity to do them. Why not now is a very important lesson.
Thank you. I love it. Let's think for a few moments. I'm going to take a shift now. I'm going to take you in a different direction, and that is about some of what we were hearing before, the resistance to hearing the truth, which is one of the obvious themes all the way through the movie. Early on, we've got the first awareness is the student, Dibiaski, who doesn't have to work hard to convince her professor. And very quickly, he rubs out the little 0 on the whiteboard because he realizes, oh my God, if this is true, we got to be careful about sharing it. So I'm going to show you a quick text from Deuteronomy. Oops, that's not what I want. This. There we go. So this is a conversation with Moses. I know folks at home can't probably see the text, but I'll read it for you. It says, I'll raise up for them among their own people a prophet like yourself, Moses, in whose mouth I will put my words, and who will speak to them all that I command. So there's a promise that God is going to continue to help us see what needs to be seen. And anybody who fails to heed the words of that prophet, and I'm obviously here now making a connection between the notion that Dibiaski and then Mindy, they are prophets in a sense. They're predicting the future. They're telling everyone what they should probably hear. Anyone who fails, I myself, God, I will call them to account. But any prophet who presumes to speak in my name, an oracle that I did not command to be uttered, or who speaks in the name of other gods, that prophet shall die. So the concern here is you have two prophets, one saying the world is going to end, and another saying, don't worry, be calm, look down. Literally, look down. Which one do you believe? How do you know which one to believe? So before I show you the Bible's answer, what is your answer? How do you know which one to believe? Muriel?
Well, in the movie, it shows you the one guy who looks up. That's the aha experience. Oh my God, they're lying to us.
So in the rally, the Don't Look Up rally.
That's right.
Suddenly, once truth can no longer be denied, experientially, I know this to be true. You can't tell me otherwise. My eyes have opened, I've been awakened, and now I realize I've been following the wrong prophet.
The only problem we have to know is when are we going to be smart enough to see that for ourselves?
Yeah, that's great. Diane?
Sorry, again, it's COVID, because who do you believe? And we were watching this going, you can listen to somebody who's telling you to shine lights in strange places and drink bleach, or you can listen to the scientists who are telling you what's really going on. And who do you believe? And hopefully you look around and you say, okay, there's science, and then there's God only knows what, and listen to what research and what science and what theology maybe tells you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let me show Mark, go ahead and take a thought, and I'll show you what the Torah says.
Just to react to what you said, and I agree. I think what was problematic is that if it's science versus everything else, clear, right? But it always gets, scientists get dragged in on both sides. There was the science, people were saying that scientists who were anti-vax or whatever were getting silenced, not getting on shows. And so it made it science versus science, and we're not scientists, so we didn't know.
So here's the really unsatisfying response. So in the Torah, this is the next verse. And should you ask yourselves, how can we know that the oracle was not spoken by God? How do you know if it was a fake oracle? Well, if the prophet speaks in the name of God and the oracle does not come true, that oracle was not spoken by God. Oh, just like last night. You see, you take Hebrew and you drop it into English, and it's always a mess. The prophet has uttered it presumptuously. Do not stand in dread of that person. So, like the guy who looks up and says, oh my God, they were lying to us. I now realize way too late that it was a lie. You know, the only way to know then if a prophet is a prophet is in hindsight, looking backward. Not helpful. God, not helpful. I see lots of the thoughtful hands popping up. I'm also looking for other voices. Are there any other folks who haven't had a chance to weigh in who'd like to share a thought, reflect on it? Wind.
So before you revealed the ending of that verse, I wasn't going to pay attention to either one. I was going to run them through ChatGPT and see if there were any interesting hallucinations that came up or what these people's background was.
Which people?
The two prophets.
Oh, Eldad and Medad. Huh.
I tend not to follow either one until I've really checked them out. And, you know, ChatGPT has some very interesting hallucinations along the way.
Well, you know, this is the other theme that's ripe throughout the whole movie is the source of knowledge is unreliable, or the trust in knowledge. I guess once you see it with your own eyes, perhaps. And that's one of the four pillars of Rami Shapiro's perennial wisdom. If you know it to be true by your experiential relationship to the idea, then that is one way to chart your course. I wonder if I can quickly pull up one other scene. Give me just a moment to see if I can do this quickly, because I think it's a really interesting piece to think about. Hold on, 42. Oh, there we go. Close. Okay. No, hold on. So, oh, there we go. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up for us.
The known pornographer named Kit was that dumb fuck. The United Nations have been considering its own deflective mission. Now, I know a lot of Hollywood is supporting the Just Look Up movement, but I haven't seen a pin like that.
Yeah, this pin points both up and down. Because I think as a country we need to stop arguing and virtue signaling. Just get along.
That is so refreshing. I think we're all tired of the politics.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why we made Total Devastation. It's for everyone. Oh, it's a popcorn movie. You keep your eye.
Okay, so the message here, I hope everyone at home was able to hear that. The mega movie star says, looking up, looking down, they can come together and just reconcile, and we can all just get along. That didn't work. It did. And I wonder if we might think about that for a moment, that there is maybe a common ground where we can put aside fundamentally contrary opinions and say, hey, we can all just be together on this one. I'm going to imagine that most of you are going to say, no, there are things you can't compromise on. You can't agree to disagree that the world is flat. You can't agree to disagree that COVID vaccines, whatever. I'm not. I don't know who's in the room. But what do you think about the idea that it's okay whether you choose to look up or look down? We just need to stop virtue signaling and just get over the politics of it. I mean, there's a real comet headed towards the Earth, and if you look up, you'll see it. So, what are your thoughts on his suggestion that we can move past this? We can be together still, George?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't thinking about that scene at all, but it's interesting to hear the comment about the virtue signaling, because what does that do except make you feel good? You feel like you're doing something really helpful and unifying, and I don't know. There are things that are you just can't take wrong answers into the equation and try to blend it in and come out ahead of the game, right? At some point, but gosh, I was thinking just before that, I was thinking about the context was that you can't deny the evidence of your eyes. Once you do that, you can't deny it. But I thought we're kind of good at doing that, aren't we? If there's somebody who will give us an explanation that feels okay to us, we'll go with that. Yeah, I think we're pretty good at rationalizing around. So I'm not sure we always, go along when we're confronted with reality. That's all.
Yeah, that's terrific, George. I had one of our young congregants, a young adult whose bar mitzvah I did a good number of years ago. He and I had lunch this week because he wanted to talk about some of what he's discovering. And he has discovered the truth of mystics and crystals and chakras and wants to know, really, basically, is there a place in Judaism for him and for that? Didn't ask it in so many words, but he wanted to know, what does Judaism have to say about mediums and connecting in that way? And many of you know this, he didn't, which is that the Torah doesn't deny that it works, that there are mediums out there and oracles, but it says really clearly, you should not consult them. It's not a thing for a nice Jewish boy. And I was made to think about that, George, when you just were pointing that out, that there may be truth out there, and yet even our own religion is encouraging us to stay focused in a way that that prevents access to knowledge that the framers of our tradition didn't want us to have. You can make all kinds of things out of that. Maybe I'll with that in mind, I'll play another quick clip for us, which happens shortly after. Let me see if I can fast. Okay, I'm just going to jump through a couple of pieces here. These are the two rallies that are happening at the same time: a Don't Look Up rally and a, hear this.
You working hard, being rich, and then them. We need them. We need them because you build us up to fight them. The working class, the lower. Do you understand? I don't get it. Do you understand? I'm talking about nutritionists. I'm talking about personal trainers. People at the spa, they're not going to check you in, and they're not the excuses, but they walk you down the corridor. They're there.
So I tend to watch a lot of the late night comedians, and every once in a while they'll say, today this politician unwittingly or inadvertently told the truth. And it'll be a comment that's made where you realize, oh my God, they know exactly what they're doing in trying to hold down access to truth. Not as explicit as that, but that's a humorous example of suddenly having the curtain pulled away and you realize, oh, they know full well what they're doing. Dennis?
Well, I think the interesting question is, what is really truth? In other words, and you're all saying something like, you trust your eyes. Why would you trust your eyes or what you hear? With so many things that actually do is present a vision that is really artificial or is made up or something like that. So the old idea of, is there like alternative facts, which was quoted during the Trump years. Maybe is that really the truth or not the truth? So I don't know. So like looking up, for instance, and seeing the comet, I don't know, was that real or not real? Raises an interesting question as to, what do you trust? The same with the two prophets. Do you look to back history? Selecting doctors is another one of like, you look back and see what the history is, where they got into school. You trust other friends, but somehow or other, when you always select your choice, that's the best doctor in the world.
That's a great observation. So, we're a Jewish community. We have hitched our wagon to the Jewish tradition, either because we were born into it, or we chose to convert into it, or we married into it, or we're somehow adjacent to it. But this tradition has inspired us as a good truth. There are other truths out there that we could have chosen. We could convert to heartless capitalists. That's not Jewish. That's not that's not reconcilable with Judaism. You can say I'm a Jew who's a heartless capitalist, but you're not actualizing the truths of Torah. So where do you and I get off being so confident that the values that you love about Judaism are the right values? How do we know that? Judy?
Well, it strikes me that we are a vast world and certainly a vast country, and we form our truths about the way we grow up, who's around us, what we learn, our education, and what is in our best interest to understand as truth. So we grow up here in the Northeast. Educational systems are pretty tight. The community is pretty tight. You grow up in the Midwest or in a small farming community, and what you're going to learn and absorb is what's around you. And what you can't control, you disregard, because if you have no control of what's happening, you're a farmer. You know, you care about growing things, and that's your life.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that truth is relative.
Because you pick it up from what you say, and then you feed into it. So you're watching this news instead of that news.
We had an early Musar session years and years ago where one of the members was absolutely incensed at the idea that truth is relative. It either happened or it didn't happen. And, alternative facts, while laughable, are a thing. They're real.
It doesn't happen over a 6-month period of time where you have this decision you have to make.
Yeah.
Do I believe this comet is coming?
Yeah.
It happens over a lifetime. If I can do something about it, maybe I'll believe it. If I can't, why should I even believe it? Because I can't do anything. So it's a full circular system.
Yeah.
And we can't always think of it from our perspective here because the world is bigger than this, than the Northeast. So.
So my bat mitzvah speech ended with, I'm glad that I was born an American Jew. And when you talked about how everybody's relationship to Judaism, I was born into being an American. I was born into being a Jew. And when I got older, I chose to keep that. But when I grew up, it was, God forbid you were born in Russia. And at a very, very low level, my kid is like going to a new camp this summer, and he has other friends who are starting sleepaway camp. And I told him, every kid is going to tell you that their camp is the best camp, right? Just like America was the best country and Judaism was the best religion. And I said, when you get older, every kid is going to tell you that their college was the best college. Like you right now think your elementary school is the best elementary school. And we have that tendency to believe that in what we choose to identify with.
So as we're talking here, I couldn't help but reflect on the history of my own family and to actually reflect on history and the truth of what that represents. So to me, I think that at least myself, what I'm seeing today is something that we've seen a long time ago. And the cycle of history has been a big lesson as to where does one look? Up, back, sideways? What's the truth? And frankly, I'm finding myself thinking a lot of what's been and what we as a people have been through and how scary a world it is for us today, looking back. So while I certainly saw the comet coming, but from a reality point of view, we've all seen what's happened and what could happen. And it's kind of scary. And
there's a Jewish story that I tell the kids in a religious school from time to time. The title of the story is Slaves Don't Look Up. And it's about two men who go trudging through the rigors of life, and they're always looking down, and they're complaining about the mud that they have to walk through, and they're complaining about the fact that their shoes are worn out, and they're complaining, and they are slaves. And the person who lifts their eyes is the one who's free and who can do all the things we're talking about. If you are entrenched in a space, whether someone has put you there, enslaved you, or you've chosen to stay in that mindset of slavery, having your eyes down, and it's simply a wonderful coincidence that it says it in such parallel ways. But slaves don't look up. Did I hear another? Oh, new voices? Okay. Nope, not at all.
Unfortunately. I think one of the challenges is that people speak the truth and think it's absolute. And it's not necessarily like the scientists or the economists who said there was going to definitely be a recession in this country economically, and now suddenly it looks like there's not going to be. I think there needs to be some humility among people who speak the truth. And my other major concern is that critical thinking has seemed to gone down the drain.
Yeah.
That nobody is asking questions.
Yeah. Let's hear a few more quick comments and try to get some more voices in. Wind and.
So when you asked about Torah, I thought, what Torah? What is Torah? Torah is full, the one we put into the ark is full of contradictions. Every day when we get up, aren't we creating our own Torah? Isn't that one of the big messages that comes out of Judaism is we're free to create our own Torah, reflecting on what has been and living in the now?
That's a great observation. I'm just going to jump in and say that one of the sub-themes that didn't come through particularly loudly was when the doctor, Peter, the weird guy from Bash, when he's standing in the hangar and he says to Dr. Mindy, we know everything about you. We know what's going on physically for you, and we know what you're going to do. We've got 90 million, whatever it was, data points on you. We even know how you're going to die. And he predicts how the doctor is going to die, alone and miserable and sad. And then he also later on predicts how the president is going to die by being eaten by a brontorok. And she says, "What's that?" And he says, "Don't know." Turns out that's exactly what happened, because she didn't exert the decision to really choose her own Torah, or her own Torah was so obscured by self-interest that she hopped on the spaceship and left her son behind, and then found her way to a brontorok. But Dr. Mindy chooses to write his own Torah. He gets pulled off his path by fame and a beautiful woman and final acknowledgement of him as an academic. And then, thankfully, before it's too late, he has an opportunity to do teshuvah. And he comes back to his front door with flowers in his hand, the apologies, and he is welcomed back into his own path, back to himself, and proves the doctor's prophecy wrong. He doesn't die alone. He wrote his own Torah, got back on his path. And, you know, as a Jewish community, that to me is a powerful message. The argument about free will. Dr. Bash, or whatever, Peter, says basically, you have no free will. We know exactly through our algorithms what you're going to do. Which is a Grant and I've talked about many times. Is there free will? Or are we nothing more than a predictable algorithm and just playing out our script? Okay. This is killing me because, number one, I got through 23% of what I wanted to. I have texts. I have excerpts. We have voices to hear, ideas we didn't even touch. I love this. I am going to finish us with a quote. I brought some Musar text. I brought some commentary, some medieval commentary. But we're gonna finish here with this. This is from our own teacher, our own beloved Eugene Borowitz. And this was in an article he wrote in
Moment.
I think it was commentary. Thank you. I couldn't pull up that name. I don't think this was Moment. Anyway, he writes, I hope at home you can see this, but I'll read it. To rebuild his life, to be true to his new view of history, post-war man needed to understand not only his limitations, but also his profound capacity for evil, even in the guise of doing good. And I think the question that he's leaving us with is, how capable are we of knowing that what looks like good to others, let me think about how I want to phrase that. When do we know that we're doing evil in the guise of good? If we think with our whole heart and with critical thinking and with a relationship to history and future and something bigger than ourselves, if we believe that what we're working on is good, okay, that's all we can ask. But there are also times when that little voice in the back of our head says, you know better. And that's a really hard voice to listen to. Diane, why don't you grab the microphone off that table? Thanks, Andrew.
It's Machiavelli. It's total Machiavelli. If you're doing good, but there's a little bit of evil, but the end justifies it, that's doing good, and that's evil in the guise of doing good. It's the Machiavellian conundrum, you know.
Where's the Nietzsche quote? No, I thought I brought a Nietzsche quote that would kind of complement your observation of Machiavellian thinking about, you know, the necessary evil that's inherent in anything, including the good. A number of you have joined this conversation of learning in the time since Dr. Borowitz was with us, and so therefore I don't know that you'll appreciate fully how much of an impact his presence in this endeavor of learning was really imprinted. You don't need to ask rabbis. We all feel his imprint on our learning and on our presence out there in the world now as educators. But the day that we buried him, we opened up his grave the day before and realized that there was a huge boulder right there, and it took a lot of effort for the cemetery team to remove that boulder so that we could inter him. And what a interesting opportunity. And so we had some volunteers go and get that boulder with their backhoe and their flatbed and bring it over here to our property. And I would encourage everyone to maybe walk outside and right out in front of our building here out the school door. There's a big boulder with a beautiful brass plaque that we affixed to it to permanently acknowledge the presence of a gadol, a great within our family. Would the two of you care to say anything this morning? Yeah. Why don't you come over here so they can all see you too, if you're comfortable.
So my dad loved being here. Not to be the teacher, but to be a learner with all of you. Carol, from your having the Christian Bible always ready. Gail, for you being the Google rabbi on Saturday mornings, and he really loved, and my mom loved being part of this community, so that's one of the reasons why, in honoring the 100th anniversary of his birth, that Drusi and Nan and I wanted to make sure that we honored it first here, because this was really his community and his family for the last 12 years of his life. And Judy and Sheldon, you were all part of it from the beginning, from being there. He was lumbering down the road walking in for the first time, and Rabbi Sobel saw that walk and turned around and said, "Oh shit." Because he was walking in who had been her teacher. And he loved that comment. Anyway, it's very important for us to be here, Drusi and I, and Man in Spirit. Her father-in-law passed away a week ago, so that's why she's not here. But to be here to celebrate the 100 years of his life.
And how do Jews celebrate? We eat. And so to Dr. Borowitz's family, we say thank you for your love, for your presence, for your generosity in the past and your generosity this morning for supplying us with a brunch. You folks at home, we will lift a bagel in your absence for you. Muriel?
Well, tell me you programs have to be continued.
Here's what I'm going to do. So for those of you at home, Muriel was asking, God, if there's so much more to talk about, maybe this is just part one of the conversation. When I first began transitioning some involvement in Dr. Borowitz's absence, I thought it might be an opportunity to try some things a little differently, and it was made very, very clear to me by the group that no, they don't want to do it any differently. They like exactly so. I tried it once several years later, and it was made again very clear that we appreciate your creativity and your thoughts, but we like what we do. So I'm going to take Muriel's question and I'm going to pose it to you all in an email. And you will write back to me and let me know if you'd like to continue this conversation in chapter 2, and we'll see how it goes. And you should be honest. This is not my Bible study. It wasn't Dr. Borowitz's, despite the fact that it's named after him. It's yours, and so we will do what you want to do. But I will just point out that I'm going to be away for the next 2 Shabbatot. On my way to Nepal with a team of Sinai folks. There's, I think, 15 of us who are going. And so I won't be back until the 27th, I think. So the Shabbat right after that, I will return. So, Diane, would you lift a bagel for us? And we'll do a Shehechianu as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tehavon. And Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehechianu v'kimanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. And I was just thinking about the fact that we sang Shehechianu last night on the occasion of the 70th birthday of Temple Sinai. And I was thinking about the fact that Dr. Borowitz was a vibrant 30-year-old teacher of Judaism the day that Temple Sinai came to be. And man, it's just remarkable, those journeys. Luckily, within our Torah, our personal Torah, we have a little chapter that includes Dr. Borowitz and the imprint he made on us. Shabbat Shalom, and thank you, everybody. Shabbat Shalom at home.
Thank you all. It was wonderful.
Oh.
Okay.
Thanks, George.